He'd built an empire on precision, the kind of wealth that moves markets and turns quiet whispers into industry rumors. At 38, the CEO everyone envied lived in a world of glass towers, private jets, and decisions worth millions. But behind every controlled breath was a weight he never spoke about, and a loss that money refused to soothe. That spring morning, as sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, he watched a live feed of a community event, expecting noise, color, maybe a brief distraction. Instead, he saw her. A woman whose confidence didn't shout, it glowed. A woman who spoke about rebuilding communities like she'd lived every brick of the story. He didn't know her name yet. But something in him paused, truly paused, for the first time in months. And he wondered, what if the person who could change your life doesn't even know you exist? Hi, my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because, tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The camera opens on a sleek, silent boardroom, polished walnut table, black leather seats, a city skyline reflected in every panel of glass. At the far end sits the CEO, sleeves rolled halfway up his forearms, tie loosened but still clinging to routine. His fingers drum lightly against the table, but the rhythm stops the moment the screen on the wall flickers to life. A community live stream. Vendors, children, laughter, and at the center of it, her. She stands beneath a modest tent, dark curls pinned loosely back, sunlight catching the gold flecks in her skin. She's presenting a model of a redesigned playground, clean lines, eco-friendly materials, bold colors made to spark imagination. Her voice rolls through the speakers, warm and steady. We don't just build spaces, she says. We build futures. And every child deserves a place where their imagination can breathe. Something in the CEO's jaw softens. He exhales through his nose, just once, as if reminding himself he's still in the room. He reaches for the remote but doesn't press pause. Instead, he leans forward. Her confidence is quiet, the kind that doesn't beg for attention, it commands it with purpose. The crowd leans in when she speaks. Parents nod. Kids hug her waist. A small girl hands her a crayon drawing, and she accepts it with a smile so genuine it pulls him deeper into the screen. He's seen thousands of pitches, hundreds of presentations. But this feels different. A knock taps gently at the boardroom door. His assistant peeks in. Sir? The investors are waiting. 2 minutes, he says, eyes fixed on the screen. The assistant hesitates, but leaves him to whatever moment this is. He watches as the woman walks to the edge of the playground model, adjusting a tiny wooden slide with care, the way someone adjusts a real child's collar before school. Her movements are precise but tender, as though every small detail matters. And then, as if the universe wants to push him deeper into whatever this feeling is, a little girl tugs her hand. Are you coming back tomorrow? The girl asks. Of course, she says, crouching to the child's level. We're building this together, remember? Your ideas helped shape this. A laugh escapes her, soft and unforced, and it rushes through the speakers like a memory he forgot he missed. The CEO's fingers still. That sound. It hits something buried. Something raw. He inhales sharply, enough to steady himself, and finally presses pause. The screen freezes on her smile. He swallows hard. He shouldn't be this drawn to a stranger. He shouldn't be thinking about the way her eyes warmed when she spoke, or how she commanded a space without raising her voice. But he is. And beneath that pull lies a deeper ache, the kind he's spent months trying to outrun. Grief doesn't announce itself, it just sits in the chest like a stone. And for the first time in a long time, that stone shifts. His assistant knocks again, a little firmer. Sir, the board. I'm coming, he says, quietly. He grabs his jacket, stands, then looks back at the screen one more time. His gaze lingers, as if something in that still image needs to be memorized before he lets the moment go. He hits play long enough to hear her final line, every community deserves hope. That's where real change begins. Hope. He hasn't used that word in months. When he finally leaves the room, he carries something unexpected with him, not the weight he's grown accustomed to, but a spark. A small spark, yes, but enough to make him wonder if strangers really can change the course of a life. What would you do if the person you admire most suddenly walked into your world? Comment below. Would you step toward the moment, or let it pass? The jet hums like a living heartbeat beneath him, smooth, controlled, expensive enough that even the leather seats have their own quiet presence. The CEO sits beside the wide window, watching clouds rise and break like soft mountains. The world below is just dots and shadows, and yet, he feels smaller than any of it. His team thinks he loves these flights. They assume the private jet is just another symbol of power. But today, it feels like a capsule, a silent one, carrying a man who has spent too many miles pretending he's fine. He's on his way to a high-profile charity gala, another event where he'll shake hands, offer a smile that doesn't quite reach, and pretend the world hasn't shifted beneath him. His assistant sits across from him reading notes, but keeps sneaking glances. Something in his expression gives away the truth. The jet isn't luxury today. It's refuge. Sir, should I remind you of your remarks for tonight? She gently asks. He nods, but his gaze stays on the clouds. She starts reading anyway, but he's not listening. He's hearing her voice, the woman from the live stream. And that smile he froze the screen for? It lingers, uninvited, but welcome. Why her? Maybe it's the sincerity. Maybe it's the way she cared about those kids like she'd known them forever. Maybe it's that for the first time in months, something inside him felt lighter. His assistant eventually stops reading. Everything okay, sir? He blinks. Yeah, just thinking. She studies him longer than usual, then lets it go. The jet dips lower as the city below comes into view, a sea of lights against early evening haze. He tightens his grip on the armrest. Large events used to energize him, now they drain him before he even arrives. When the jet door finally opens, photographers swarm. He steps out with the composure people expect of a man worth millions, shoulders squared, expression calm, suit tailored so perfectly he looks carved from success itself. But beneath all of that is the same truth he refuses to voice aloud. The seat beside him, the one that should hold joy, laughter, a bright-eyed little girl, has been empty for far too long. Inside the gala hall, everything sparkles, chandeliers dripping light, tables dressed in crystal and gold, waiters carrying trays like choreography. People greet him instantly, praising his donations, his leadership, his innovation. But not one person sees the heaviness tucked behind his eyes. He smiles, shakes hands, listens to updates on projects he funded, but his mind drifts. Back to the playground model. Back to that crayon drawing a child handed her. Back to her laugh, the one that slipped under his ribs without asking permission. Meanwhile, across town, the woman who unknowingly caught a CEO's attention is standing in her ma's tidy kitchen, peeling carrots. The soft rhythm of the knife tapping the board fills the air while her ma, wrapped in a cozy robe, stirs a pot of stew. You work too much, her ma says without looking up. She smiles. You say that every time I come over. And you never listen. Her ma taps the spoon against the pot. You need someone who tells you to rest. Mama, I'm fine. I like my work. Her ma arches a brow. Liking something doesn't mean it don't drain you. The woman laughs softly, the same warm sound that struck the CEO's heart hours ago. She steals a taste of the stew, nods in approval, and bumps her shoulder gently against her ma's. These moments ground her. This kitchen, with its mismatched ceramic bowls and smell of fresh cornbread, is home in a way blueprints never could be. You really think the kids liked the design? She asks. What child doesn't love a slide and bright colors? Her ma pauses, grows thoughtful. But what I loved most was the way you lit up sharing it. The woman softens. Then, quieter. You think I'm doing enough? You're doing more than enough, her ma says, squeezing her hand. You just need someone who sees it. The woman thinks about the little girl from earlier. The drawing still sits folded in her bag. She plans to frame it. The moment is peaceful, grounding. And miles away, the CEO feels the opposite, unanchored. Back at the gala, he steps outside onto a balcony to breathe. City lights burn below like embers. For a man surrounded by admiration, he feels impossibly alone. He pulls out his phone and opens the live stream replay, not the entire event. Just the part where she talks about hope. He watches it once. Then again, slower. Her presence is steady, like someone who knows how to build not just structures, but stability. Before he can second-guess himself, he whispers into the empty night. Who are you? He doesn't know that fate is already pulling them closer. Ever been surrounded by people, yet felt completely alone? Drop a comment. What moment made you realize you needed something more? It starts with a low hum, the kind that vibrates through the air just moments before everything goes dark. The CEO stands inside his office, preparing to leave early after a long night of meetings, when the city's power grid gives a sudden shudder. Then the lights cut out. All at once. Silence swallows the floor. Emergency backups flicker on, but his assistant calls out from the hallway. Sir, the storm hit harder than expected. Roads are already flooding. He glances out the window. Sheets of rain slam against glass. Lightning splits the sky in violent streaks. Traffic lights blink uselessly across the city. He grabs his jacket. Let's head down before it gets worse. But the elevator refuses to respond. The lobby generator isn't running. And by the time they reach the first floor, they hear the security guard shout over the storm. Backups failing. Streets are closing, the city's asking people to shelter in place. His assistant looks worried. You can't stay here. The building's too exposed. He knows. He also knows exactly where he can go. A smaller building nearby, tucked safely inside a side street he's walked past a dozen times but never really seen. Her studio. He doesn't tell the driver to take him home. He doesn't instruct anyone. His instincts move faster than thought. Drop me at the artisan block, he says. I'll wait the storm out there. His assistant stares. Sir, that place is. Trust me. The car crawls through the rain, fighting rising water. Thunder shakes the sky. By the time they reach the block, most shops are already dark, metal shutters pulled halfway. But her studio, the boutique workspace he's only glimpsed from a website photo, glows softly through the storm. He steps out into the rain, his suit soaked within seconds, hair plastered back. But he doesn't turn away. Something pulls him forward. He knocks. Once. Twice. Inside, she's kneeling on the floor near a drafting table, trying to salvage scattered papers from the growing puddle near the door. The storm rattles her windows, and she mutters, Not tonight. Please, not tonight, reaching for another stack of drawings. When she hears the knock, she freezes. Who? We're closed, she calls out. But the knocking comes again, hesitant this time. She opens the door only a few inches, prepared to tell off whoever's out there. Then she sees him. A very expensive suit, drenched. A face she recognizes from billboards, business magazines, headlines. And eyes, unexpectedly soft, almost apologetic. She blinks. You're. Sorry, he says, brushing wet hair back. The storm forced a shutdown. Your studio was the only building with lights still on. She looks behind him. Rain is nearly horizontal now. Water rushes along the curb like a small river. She hesitates. Not because she doesn't know him, she does, everyone does. But because inviting a stranger, even a famous one, into her creative space feels intimate. Still, she steps aside. Come in before you freeze. He exhales in relief and enters carefully, looking around the cozy studio filled with models, sketches, clipped photos, and jars of paintbrushes. Warm light paints everything gold. This is impressive, he murmurs, voice quiet. She huffs a soft laugh. You say that like you didn't build half the skyline. Buildings, he says gently, aren't the same as spaces meant for joy. The compliment takes her off guard. She presses a damp curl behind her ear. Thanks. A crash of thunder shakes the windows. She flinches. He notices. You okay? He asks. I hate storms, she admits. Always have. He studies her, not just her words, but the way she grips a towel a little too tightly, the way her breath speeds up when thunder rolls. He sets his jacket on a hook. I didn't mean to interrupt your night. Technically, you didn't. The storm did. He smiles, barely, but enough that something eases in his chest. Lightning flashes again, illuminating her face. She looks at him closely for the first time. You're not what I expected, she says. Oh, he asks, raising a brow. I thought you'd be taller. He stares. She holds steady. Then he laughs, a real one, low and surprised. It echoes softly against the walls. She grins. There it is. You should do that more. He clears his throat, looking away. I'll work on it. Rain hammers harder. She sighs and motions toward the small kitchenette. I'm making coffee. Storm tradition. You want some? He opens his mouth to say no. He always declines anything personal, anything warm, anything that might soften the armor he's used to living inside. But he hears her laugh replay in his head. And he sees her kindness in the doorway. And he feels, for the first time in months, like he's standing somewhere human. Yeah, he says. I'd stay for a coffee. She pauses, looks at him thoughtfully. Lightning flashes. Or, she says, you can run back out there and drown. His eyes soften. Coffee is fine. They share a small smile, the first thread tying their worlds together. If a stranger offered warmth on a stormy night, would you stay for a coffee or run for cover? Drop your answer in the comments. The next weekend arrives with clear skies, sunlight sweeping across the city like an apology for the storm. The CEO has replayed the studio moment more times than he'll admit. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because something real did. A quiet connection he can't shake. He's not used to wanting second encounters. But today, he finds himself walking toward the art district with no assistant, no security detail, no schedule dictating his steps. The weekend art walk bustles with life. Musicians on corners, vendors selling handmade jewelry, the smell of roasted almonds drifting through the air. He's overdressed for the scene, but no one seems to notice. Or maybe they do and choose not to care. He spots her before she sees him, bent over a display of hand-carved figurines, a loose denim jacket hanging off one shoulder. She's laughing with an elderly vendor who's telling a story with far too many hand gestures. For a moment, he just watches. How easily she belongs anywhere she stands. How she pulls joy toward her like gravity. Then she turns, and freezes. You again, she says, half smile forming. He lifts a hand in greeting. Didn't scare you off, did I? Depends, she says, arms crossing playfully. You planning to hide from another storm in my studio? Not today. I'm actually. He catches himself. He was about to say looking for you, but that sounds too intentional, too revealing. You're, she prompts. Exploring, he says instead. She snorts. Right. Mr. Millionaire CEO just strolling through the art walk on a Saturday. He tilts his head. And what's wrong with strolling? Nothing, she says, eyes dancing. But it's cute how you pretend it's normal. He laughs, quietly, but genuinely. Fair enough. They fall into step without discussing it. The art walk wraps around them like a living tapestry. Kids squeal near a face painting station, a guitarist strums an old love song, couples wander with matching smiles. She stops at a pottery booth, touches a glazed bowl, and sighs softly. I love when someone's hands tell you the whole story before they say a word. He studies the bowl, then her. You see stories everywhere, don't you? Of course. What else is architecture but storytelling in solid form? He hums thoughtfully. I never thought of it that way. That's because you build for profit, she teases. He raises a brow. And you build for community. Exactly, she says. They approach a small cafe truck tucked in the corner, the smell of fresh espresso drifting forward. She gestures toward the line. Coffee. My treat. He straightens slightly, not offended, but surprised. No one offers to buy him anything. Ever. I'll get it, he says. No, she smirks. Type B negotiator here. We're doing this my way. He's caught off guard. Type B what now? Negotiator, she repeats lightly. I accept help, on my terms. She steps up to the counter before he can respond and orders 2 coffees, one black for him, one hazelnut for herself. She turns back and hands him the cup with a satisfied nod. See, she says. Was that so hard? He looks at the cup, then at her, the gesture settling warmly in his chest. Harder than you think. They stroll through the art walk sipping coffee. Their conversation drifts easily. Childhood memories, embarrassing moments, the things they wish they'd done differently. She tells him how she used to draw entire cities in notebooks growing up, dreaming of changing the world one playground at a time. He doesn't talk about his past much, but with her, he finds himself admitting small truths, quieter ones, the kind he never shares. As they round a corner, she stops abruptly. Oh, wait. I wanted to ask you something. He tenses slightly. People usually ask him for money, connections, opportunities. But she looks at him with sincere curiosity. I'm working on a concept piece for my studio, she says. It's a large installation for kids, a mix of steel and colored glass. But I need access to a fabrication space I can't afford yet. He nods slowly, waiting. So I'll make you a deal, she continues, pushing a curl behind her ear. I'll design a custom piece for your new office, something modern, something that actually means something, if you help me get time in a manufacturing workshop. He lifts a brow. A trade. A collaboration, she corrects. And what makes you think I need art for my office? She gives him a slow, amused look. I've seen your interviews. Your office looks like it's allergic to color. He tries not to smile. Fails. So, she asks. Deal. He considers it, not because the cost matters, but because the offer is unlike anything he's heard in years. She's not asking for charity. She's asking for partnership. Equal footing. Deal, he says quietly. But only if you promise to sign the finished work. She arches a brow. Why? Because people should know who built the beauty they're looking at. Her breath catches, only a fraction of a second, but he sees it. They walk again, slower now. The sunlight fades into soft gold, casting long shadows between them. Neither wants the afternoon to end. If you could ask for one thing in return for your talent, what would it be? Tell us in the comments. The rain fell in thin silver threads against the windows of Arden's penthouse, soft enough to sound like breathing, steady enough to feel like a warning. Liana stood in the middle of his living room, soaked from the storm, her curls dripping onto the marble floor. She hadn't meant to come here. She hadn't even realized her feet were carrying her until the elevator doors opened and the private hallway swallowed her whole. She just needed to see him. Arden stepped out from his study, still wearing the same charcoal sweater from earlier. Sleeves pushed to his forearms, tension carved into the lines around his mouth. He froze the moment he saw her. Liana. His voice cracked. What happened? She didn't know how to start. How do you say I heard you grieving alone and it broke something inside me? I was already driving this way, she lied softly, eyes lowering. And then the rain came. And you're shivering. He moved closer before she finished, fingertips brushing her arm, not quite touching fully but close enough that warmth spread through her like a slow glow. I'm fine, she whispered. You're not. His voice was quiet, but something inside it had changed, less guarded, less rehearsed. Come here. He draped a plush towel over her shoulders, but she wasn't sure if she trembled from the cold or the way he exhaled when his hands lingered on her arms. Arden. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. He looked at her like a man torn between restraint and need, between guilt and desire. You should sit, he murmured, but his eyes never left her face. I don't want to sit, she said. I want you to talk to me. Really talk. For a moment, he didn't move. Rain tapped against the glass like impatient fingers. Then, slowly, he nodded. Come with me. He led her to the room he avoided most, the door he kept closed, the one he'd never mentioned in details. When he pushed it open, Liana's breath caught. A child's room. Small. Soft. Frozen in time. A pale yellow wall with hand-painted stars. A bookshelf with dolls. A tiny jacket still hanging on the back of a chair. Liana's chest tightened. So this is where the silence has been coming from. She was 4, Arden said, voice fragile. Not the daughter from earlier today. Naomi is 7. I have 2 daughters. Had. The word hung between them, heavy. What happened? Liana whispered. He swallowed hard. Pneumonia. Complications. Fast. Faster than I understood. I keep the room because I can't let go yet. His throat worked as he forced the words out. Tonight is the anniversary. She stepped closer, barely breathing. Arden. I told myself I could carry it alone, he said hoarsely. But when you walked away from me today, when I watched your car leave, he shook his head. It hurt more than it should have. And I hated that part of me wanted you to stay. Liana's heart cracked open. Wanting someone doesn't make you weak, she said quietly. It makes you human. He laughed, a broken, bitter sound. I don't know how to be human anymore. Then he covered his face with one hand, shoulders trembling, not violently, but like a man who had held grief inside too long and no longer had the strength to contain it. She stepped forward. Slow, careful, tender. Her hands touched his wrists first, a silent permission-seeking touch. When he didn't pull away, she guided his hands down, revealing his tear-streaked face. Arden, she murmured, you don't have to hide from me. He looked at her then, truly looked, and for the first time, she saw the boy beneath the billionaire, the father beneath the businessman, the wounded soul beneath the careful armor. He took one step closer. Then, another. The distance between them became a breath. I don't know what this is, he confessed, voice barely above a whisper. But when you're near me, the grief doesn't swallow me whole. Liana's heartbeat trembled at the gentleness in his tone. Then let me stay. Just for tonight. Not because you need saving, but because you deserve company while you remember. He inhaled sharply, like the offer pierced him. You're too kind, he murmured. No, she said softly. I'm choosing you. There's a difference. His composure fractured. Something in him gave in. Slowly, carefully, he rested his forehead against hers. Not a kiss. Not yet. But intimate enough that both of them felt the shift. The room held its breath. Stay, he whispered. Then show me how to breathe again. And Liana, with her storm-damp clothes and trembling hands, nodded. I'm here, she said. I'm not going anywhere. Outside, the rain fell harder, like a release he could finally allow himself. Liana didn't expect the softness of the room to weigh so heavily on her chest. Maybe it was the tiny shoes by the window. Maybe it was the half-finished drawing taped to the wall. Or maybe it was the quiet way Arden breathed, as if even inhaling in this space felt like a trespass into memory. He didn't let go of her hand. Not tightly. Not possessively. Just, like a man finally accepting he didn't have to stand upright alone. Come, he murmured, his voice low, deeper than earlier, softer than the grief that had cracked it. There's something I want to show you. He led her out of the room, closing the door gently behind them, as if his daughter were still asleep inside. They walked into the dim hallway where the rain made faint shadows move across the floor. Arden paused, searching her face. "You're sure you're warm enough?" he asked, thumb grazing the corner of her towel. She nodded. "I'm fine." He eyed her skeptically, then gave a faint smile, the kind that didn't lift all the way, but still mattered. "Liana, you're still shaking." "Only a little." She swallowed. "And not just from the rain." That caught him. His eyes held hers for a long moment, long enough that the air between them grew warm, charged, real. He inhaled like her honesty fanned a flame inside him. Without a word, he stepped into his bedroom and returned with a thick black hoodie, soft, oversized, and warm enough to swallow her whole. "Here," he said gently. "Wear this." She hesitated. "Arden, I don't want to take your—" "It would make me feel better," he cut in quietly. That was the truth. Not dominance. Not insistence. Just vulnerability disguised as practicality. She slipped the hoodie over her damp clothes, the fabric falling around her like a private shield. His scent clung to it, clean, quiet, almost haunting. When she lifted her face, Arden was watching her with something new in his expression. Something unguarded. "You look," he stopped, jaw tightening, eyes sweeping over her slowly. "Warm," he finished, even though that wasn't the word he'd meant. Liana's stomach fluttered. A moment passed, soft, charged, and trembling. "Arden," she whispered, "why did you really call me back today? Before all of this?" He looked away, jaw shifting. "Because Naomi asked for help," he said. "But when I heard your voice earlier, something in me settled." His eyes returned to hers. "I didn't expect that." She stepped closer. "What part of it surprised you?" "That it felt good," he breathed. "Too good. And I didn't think I was allowed to feel anything good again." Her heart clenched. She reached up, fingers brushing the hem of his sleeve. He didn't move, not away, not closer, just watched her. "You're allowed to feel," she said quietly. "You're allowed to want things again." The words struck him deeply. She could see the way his throat worked, the way his hands curled at his sides like he needed to hold onto something. Then he took a small, conscious step toward her. Not a hesitant step. Not a broken step. A chosen one. His voice was nearly a whisper. "You feel safe." Her breath caught. "So do you." That was when the tension shifted, subtle, but unmistakable. His hand lifted slowly, fingers trailing near her cheek without touching. His eyes searched hers, asking for permission without saying a word. She tilted her head just enough. A yes without a sound. His fingers brushed her jaw, warm, gentle, reverent. The breath she released trembled. Arden exhaled shakily, as if the simple contact unraveled something deep inside him. Liana. Her name sounded different on his lips now. Softer, closer, threaded with the beginning of desire he didn't yet trust himself to explore. She placed her hand over his, guiding it fully against her cheek. "You're not going to break," she whispered. He closed his eyes at the feeling, like the warmth of her skin steadied him. Then he opened them, gaze dark and almost unbearably tender. "I don't want to rush this," he said, voice hushed, strained. "I'm not steady enough yet. And you deserve something whole." Liana stepped closer, their bodies almost touching. "Wholeness isn't a starting point," she murmured. "It's something you build." His breath shook. He cupped her face properly now, thumb tracing her skin in slow, careful strokes. "I don't know how to let someone hold me," he admitted. "Then let me hold the moments," she said. "You can catch up when you're ready." His chest rose sharply, an emotional hit he didn't expect. He leaned forward, not kissing her, not claiming, not wanting to cross the line he wasn't steady enough to hold. But he rested his forehead against hers again, this time with intention, with familiarity, with longing simmering beneath restraint. "I don't want you to leave tonight," he whispered. I wasn't planning to, she breathed. His eyes softened, darkened, warmed. Good. The room fell quiet. Safe. Warm. Held. For the first time in years, Arden didn't feel empty. For the first time tonight, Liana didn't feel alone. And neither of them needed to rush the rest. The morning sunlight cut through the blinds like thin, sharp blades. Arden sat in his office, reviewing documents with a stiff jaw, eyes flicking between financial projections and emails flagged urgent by his assistant. The merger his board had been pushing for months loomed closer, and it could relocate Liana's studio to another city, something he hadn't anticipated would matter to him so much until last night. He rubbed his face, tasting the tension, feeling a weight pressing on him heavier than any quarterly report. He knew the stakes. One decision could shift the lives of hundreds. But the personal cost gnawed at him. Liana. Her smile. The warmth of her touch. It was all in conflict with the cold, sharp edge of corporate necessity. His phone vibrated. A message from one of the board members flashed. Decision is imminent. We need your sign-off. Liana's studio is in the crosshairs. He swallowed. Something in his chest twisted, resentment, frustration, confusion. How had this professional crisis tangled itself so deeply with his personal life? Meanwhile, miles away, Liana was dealing with her own storm. Not the weather, not the rain, but her mother's health, which had worsened overnight. Ma had been coughing, weaker than usual, struggling to manage the small apartment. Liana rushed to her side, helping her sit, making tea, gently adjusting the blankets around her shoulders. She looked at her mother and felt a wave of guilt wash over her. She'd been so consumed by her work and her new, unexpected connection with Arden that she hadn't seen how much Ma needed her. A hurried phone call from Arden interrupted her thought process. She answered, voice controlled. Hello. Liana, he said, tone clipped, hurried. I need to talk. About the merger. About your studio. Now? She asked, glancing at Ma. I can't. I'm at the office. It's urgent. His jaw was tight. His voice carried the unmistakable edge of someone struggling to keep anger, confusion, and fear under control. Call me back if you want to explain what you're doing. The line went dead before she could respond. She stared at the phone in her hand, chest tightening. Something had shifted. His tone, it had changed. Distant. Cold. Distrustful. A flicker of misunderstanding ignited inside her, a small but furious flame. She left her apartment later that morning to check on the studio. Her mind was a whirlwind. She couldn't shake the sense that Arden thought she had ulterior motives. Was she leveraging their connection to influence the merger? Did he think she was using him? The thought alone made her stomach twist. She didn't need his money. She didn't want his influence. But now, every interaction seemed tainted by what she imagined he might think. Back at the office, Arden stared at his desk, the phone still in his hand. Every interaction replayed in his mind. She had asked for help, yes, but was she asking for more than he could give? Was she trying to manipulate the situation, to gain leverage over his decisions? He couldn't tell yet, and the uncertainty was like a cold hand gripping his chest. He leaned back in his chair, jaw clenched, tension coiling in his shoulders. The thought of stepping into her world, of trusting her fully. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Not with the board breathing down his neck and his emotions still raw from the past. The misunderstanding, small at first, grew. The walls between them became taller with every unanswered message, every hurried call, every moment Arden held back. He didn't realize that the coldness he now wore like armor only reinforced the distance. Liana, feeling betrayed, decided on a drastic measure, moving her studio to a new city. If he didn't trust her, she wouldn't wait for his validation. Her hands packed carefully, folding sketches, models, brushes, and jars of paint, the familiar scent of her creative world mixing with the faint smell of sadness. Every piece she packed was a quiet declaration. She could survive, even if the person she'd started to care for most couldn't see her for who she truly was. Arden's office phone buzzed again. It was her name flashing on the screen. He let it ring. He didn't pick up. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how to bridge the sudden distance. Misunderstandings, assumptions, and fear of being hurt again had erected a wall he wasn't ready to tear down. He stared at the empty chair in his office, imagining her laughter, her presence, her warmth, now missing. The studio she had once allowed him to step into, now distant, shuttered in his mind as if it had never existed. And he realized with a sudden ache that he might have already pushed away something he couldn't replace. The day ended with silent tension on both sides. One had packed and moved, one had pulled back, both acting out of fear, both unsure whether the other would understand. Can a misunderstanding really break a budding love? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if someone you cared for suddenly withdrew? The city outside was a haze of rain-streaked lights and gray reflections. Arden had spent the entire drive replaying the board meeting in his mind, each word echoing with the weight of misunderstanding. He parked in front of Liana's studio, only to find the shutters down, the space quiet, almost hollow. He froze. The studio smelled faintly of paint and varnish, the lingering traces of her presence now edged with absence. Models of tiny buildings sat neatly on the shelves, sketches stacked like unopened letters of confession. His chest tightened with sudden realization. She had left. She wasn't avoiding him, she had moved on. A neighbor appeared, a kindly older woman who often checked in on Liana. Arden had only seen her briefly before, but today her expression told him everything he needed to know. "Mr. Arden, I thought you'd want to know. Her mother, she's been ill," and Liana left a note. Arden's eyes narrowed. A note. His hands shook slightly as he reached for it. The neighbor handed him a folded piece of paper, handwritten in Liana's clear script. Arden unfolded it carefully. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. I couldn't wait for trust where I felt none. I hope you find clarity before it's too late. Liana." The words hit him like a physical blow. Every emotion he had tried to contain, grief, frustration, longing, fear, converged at once. She hadn't left because she didn't care. She had left because she cared too much, and he had failed to see it. He sank into the nearest chair, gripping the note as though it might anchor him to reality. The realization was devastating. The board's push for a merger hadn't been her doing. It had been a corporate maneuver, a ruse orchestrated by a rival to destabilize him. The misunderstanding, the cold withdrawal, the walls he had erected, were entirely his doing. Arden's mind raced. He thought of every moment in their brief but profound connection, the coffee at the art walk, the stormy night in her studio, the slow vulnerability of shared grief. All of it now felt fragile, threatened by his own assumptions. He needed to find her. He needed to explain. He needed to repair what his fear had almost broken. A knock at the door startled him. The neighbor had stayed, sensing his turmoil. "She's safe," she said gently. "But she's moved to a new studio. It's small, not fancy, but she's keeping busy. She's waiting for the right moment." Arden exhaled shakily. "Where?" The neighbor hesitated, then gave a vague address in the neighboring district, far enough to make the commute inconvenient, but close enough that he could get there in time. Arden grabbed his keys, his coat, the note, anything to propel him forward. The storm outside mirrored the one he felt inside, heavy clouds and relentless emotion pressing down. Driving through the wet streets, Arden's mind was a single, urgent thought: do not lose her. Not after this. Not after everything. When he finally arrived, the new studio was modest. Small windows, a single door, the faint smell of paint wafting into the corridor. He knocked. No answer. Then a muffled voice called. "Who is it?" "It's Arden," he said, voice steady despite the storm raging in his chest. "Please, let me in." The door opened, and there she was, hair pulled back, cheeks flushed from work, eyes red-rimmed but bright. She stood tall, arms crossed defensively, yet her gaze softened when she recognized him. You came," she said quietly. "I had to," he replied. "I had to know you were safe. I had to tell you the truth. I misjudged everything. The board, the merger, the timing. I thought you were using me. But it was never you. It was me. Her eyes searched his, measuring, cautious. Arden. He stepped closer. I don't want to lose this, Liana. Not your trust. Not your friendship. Not the whatever we're starting. His words faltered, raw and vulnerable. I need a chance to make it right. She blinked, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. It's not easy to come back from this. I know, he admitted. But I'll drive through storms, wait through misunderstandings, whatever it takes. I won't, let this end like this. For the first time in hours, a small, real smile touched her lips. You're serious. More than anything, he said. I'm not letting fear or assumptions keep me from what matters. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then, come in. Let's talk. The door closed behind him. Outside, the city lights flickered against the rain, but inside, the warmth of honesty and trust began to heal the distance. Would you chase someone through a storm if it meant saving something real? Tell us in the comments. The storm hit with a vengeance that evening. Rain battered the streets in relentless sheets, and wind howled through alleyways as if the city itself were trying to warn Arden. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white, eyes scanning the dim road ahead. Every red light, every puddle, every flash of lightning mirrored the chaos in his chest. He wasn't just racing through the storm for himself, he was chasing the fragile chance of reconciling with Liana, the woman who had somehow softened the armor he'd spent decades building. Every wrong assumption, every missed signal from her haunted him as thunder rattled the windows. Finally, he arrived at the district where she had relocated her studio. The tiny building was simple, tucked between a cafe and a laundromat, windows fogged with condensation. Arden pushed the door open and stepped inside, dripping rainwater onto the worn floor. The space smelled of paint, turpentine, and the faint, lingering aroma of vanilla from her candles. A single desk lamp illuminated her work area. Sketches, models, and half-finished canvases were scattered across tables and easels. But she wasn't there. Arden called her name, voice shaking despite himself. Liana? It's me, please. A soft, muffled sob answered him from the corner. He turned, and there she was, hunched over a small chair, tears streaking her face, hands clutching a wet sketchbook. The sight struck him like a blow. Vulnerability had never looked so beautiful, so piercingly real. Liana, he whispered, stepping closer. Hey, look at me. She lifted her eyes, red-rimmed and shimmering. Her lips trembled, and for a moment, he feared she would retreat into herself again. But then she let herself be seen, fully, completely, in a way that cut through every fear he carried. I thought, she started, voice breaking, that I needed to protect myself, that if I trusted you, I'd be setting myself up for heartbreak. Arden's chest ached. He knelt slowly beside her, careful not to crowd her space. You didn't set me up, he said softly. I misread everything. I let fear make me pull away. And now I know what matters. I can't let us slip away because of assumptions. She looked at him, trembling. It's not just about us. My mom, she's still weak. The studio, moving it, starting over, it's everything. I know, he said, his voice firm, yet gentle. And I want to help. Not because I'm rich, not because I think I can fix it all, but because I want to be here. With you. Through everything. Every step of it. Her breath caught. Arden reached out, hands hovering over hers, hesitating just long enough to let her choose. When she didn't pull back, he slid his hands over hers, holding them lightly, reverently, as if they were fragile artifacts. They stayed like that for a long moment. Rain pattered against the windows, wind rattled the door, and yet, inside that small studio, time seemed to pause. Arden's heart pounded in his chest, but it wasn't fear, it was anticipation, hope, and relief all tangled together. I've been so scared, she admitted, voice trembling, of being hurt again. I've been so careful, and yet. Her eyes searched his, vulnerability mixed with something stronger now, trust. And yet I can't stop thinking about you. His thumb brushed her knuckles. Then let me stay, he whispered. I'll stand in the storm, drive through the rain, climb through misunderstandings, anything, to be with you. You don't have to face this alone. She inhaled sharply, then leaned forward. Their foreheads met first, soft, hesitant, intimate. Then, almost instinctively, their lips touched in a gentle, trembling kiss. It wasn't fiery, not yet. But it was enough to promise trust, enough to seal the fragility of their bond, enough to signal that storms, literal and metaphorical, couldn't push them apart. When they pulled back slightly, Arden rested his forehead against hers, voice quiet, raw. I'm not letting this end like this. Not ever. She nodded, tears mingling with a small, genuine smile. I believe you. The room was still. Rain pounded the roof above, but inside, warmth spread like sunlight through the storm. Arden held her silently, and in that quiet embrace, both realized that the hardest moments, misunderstanding, fear, grief, had become the very thing that brought them closer. Would you chase someone through a storm if it meant holding on to love? Share your answer in the comments. The morning air was crisp, the rain from the night before leaving everything glistening. Arden had barely slept, mind replaying every detail of the stormy night, every moment he had hesitated, every breath he had taken while holding Liana. One thing was crystal clear: he could no longer let misunderstandings or fear control their connection. He needed to act, boldly, sincerely, and with everything he had. He had spent hours on a plan. Not a corporate plan, not a business strategy, but something far more personal, a way to merge their worlds, to create a bridge between his corporate life and her artistic heart. A flagship gallery, he decided, located inside his corporate headquarters but designed entirely by Liana, a space where she could thrive without leaving her hometown. And to make it unforgettable, he had something else prepared, a silver palette, custom engraved, a symbol of collaboration and trust. He drove to her studio, heart hammering in a rhythm that matched the bright morning city streets. When she opened the door, she looked exactly the same, hair slightly messy, paint still on her fingers, eyes wary yet alive. Arden. Her voice held curiosity, caution, and a flicker of hope. Liana, he said, offering a smile that tried to carry all his sincerity, all his regret, all his hope. I've got a proposition. Something big. Something for both of us. She raised an eyebrow. Oh. He stepped inside, holding the engraved palette in his hands. Its silver surface gleamed, each corner polished meticulously. Her name was etched on it in flowing script, alongside a simple message: to build beauty together. I had this made for you, he said. Not because I think you need it, but because I want you to have something that represents trust, respect, and us. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for it. The weight of it was more than physical. It carried intention, thoughtfulness, and a promise. He took a deep breath. I want to offer you a joint venture. A gallery inside my corporate space. Fully funded. Fully yours. You stay here, in your city, your community, your life. But we merge our worlds, art and business, heart and strategy. Together. She looked at him, eyes wide, breath catching. Arden, that's huge. It's not just business, he said, voice steady now. It's personal. I've seen your world. I've felt it. And I don't want to step in and dominate. I want to support, collaborate, build together. Liana swallowed, mind racing. This wasn't charity. It wasn't influence. It was partnership, respect, recognition, and love. You really mean it? She asked, voice barely audible. He stepped closer, gaze unwavering. I've never been more serious in my life. I'm not just offering a gallery. I'm offering myself, my respect, and my willingness to fight for this connection we've started. You're the gift my heart has been needing. And I don't want to waste a second more. Her breath caught again. She felt the weight of his sincerity, of the gesture, of every risk he had taken emotionally. For the first time, she realized just how deeply he valued her. Not just for her talent, not for her company, not for her connection to his life, but for who she was entirely. She reached for the silver palette, brushing her fingers across the engraving. "It's perfect," she whispered. Her eyes met his. "And so is this offer." Arden smiled softly. "Then, do we start?" "Absolutely," she said, letting the words fall like an affirmation not just of the gallery, but of them. They moved through the studio together, talking, planning, laughing. Each decision, each shared idea felt like a brick laid in the foundation of their partnership, both professional and personal. She showed him sketches, color schemes, concepts for installations that would bring the gallery alive. He offered suggestions, logistical insights, and quiet encouragement. Their worlds intertwined effortlessly. By evening, the first steps of construction were underway. The gallery space was small but promising, walls bare yet waiting, the scent of fresh paint already infused with possibility. Liana stood beside Arden, palette in hand, feeling the weight of what had just begun. He reached for her hand, brushing paint-streaked fingers with his own. All of this, is for us. For our future." Her eyes softened, tears threatening but held in check. "For us," she echoed. And in that moment, both of them knew. The dark storms, the misunderstandings, the fears, they were behind them. Together, they were ready to build something bigger than any of them could alone. What would you do if your dream was handed to you on a silver platter? Share your answer in the comments. The morning of the grand opening dawned with a soft light spilling across the city streets. The rain from days past had washed everything clean, leaving the world vibrant, shimmering with anticipation. Liana stood at the entrance of the gallery, adjusting a small display of her work, heart pounding, not from nerves about her art, but from the realization that today would mark a turning point for more than just her career. Arden arrived moments later, crisp and composed, but with eyes that betrayed the excitement and relief he felt. He had spent the night before making final arrangements, ensuring every detail of lighting, installation, and guest flow, reflected Liana's vision. He stepped beside her, brushing a stray curl from her face. "You look nervous," he murmured, voice low, intimate. "I'm excited," she admitted, eyes darting around the space. "For the gallery, yes, but for everything else." Arden smiled softly, brushing his thumb along the back of her hand. "It'll all work out. You've earned this, Liana. And I'm proud of you, of us." The first guests arrived, local art enthusiasts, curious neighbors, a few dignitaries from the city council. Each step Liana took, from greeting attendees to explaining her pieces, radiated confidence. Yet she felt a quiet thrill every time her hand brushed Arden's, or their eyes met across the room. Then Ma entered, supported by a cane, smiling warmly despite the careful steps. Her eyes lingered on Liana first, then on Arden. A subtle nod passed between them, recognition, approval, and a quiet sense of completion. Arden extended his arm to support Ma as she moved through the gallery, careful and considerate, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes about the man he had become. Liana's heart swelled. She had witnessed his grief, his vulnerability, his courage. And now she saw him in his element, steadfast, kind, and generous, not just in business, but in love. The crowd mingled, conversations flowing, laughter threading through the air. Arden and Liana moved seamlessly together, guiding, explaining, laughing. The atmosphere buzzed with creativity and warmth, a perfect reflection of their collaboration. At one point, the room cleared slightly, leaving a quiet space near a central installation, a large piece symbolizing growth, with layers of acrylic and delicate brushwork that captured the interplay of light and shadow. Arden turned to Liana, voice soft. "Look at what you've created," he said. "Not just this, but everything. The gallery, the work, the courage to trust again." She met his gaze, heart-catching. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. He took both her hands in his, thumbs brushing across her knuckles. "Liana, I've realized something. It's not just about building this gallery, or merging our worlds. It's about us, about trusting, fighting, and choosing each other every day. And I want to make that choice, publicly today. Her breath caught. Arden stepped closer, lowering his voice but maintaining the weight of certainty. Will you be with me? Not just in this, but in everything that comes after. Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. She smiled, shaking her head gently. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. The gallery buzzed again as the crowd noticed their closeness. Guests murmured congratulations, but the moment felt intimate, suspended, a shared secret amidst the public celebration. Ma, watching from nearby, nodded approvingly, a tear escaping her eye. She had seen her daughter navigate grief, fear, and doubt, and now she saw the reward of patience, trust, and love. Arden leaned forward slightly, forehead touching hers. I promise to always stand with you, Liana. Through storms, uncertainties, everything. And I promise to meet you there, she replied, smiling through tears. Every time. They held the embrace, the gallery alive with their energy, a tangible symbol of what they had built together. Love, trust, and partnership intertwined with creativity and community. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of the quiet magic inside. But inside, Liana and Arden shared a moment of perfect clarity. Together, they were stronger. Together, they were whole. And together, they would face whatever came next, unafraid, united. What moment in your life felt like a fairy tale? Share your story in the comments. The gallery hummed with life, now fully operational, lights reflecting off polished floors, art installations glowing with brilliance. Guests mingled, sipping wine, admiring the fusion of creative vision and thoughtful design. But Arden and Liana moved almost invisibly through the crowd, hands brushing occasionally, their eyes communicating volumes without a single word. As the evening progressed, the two found themselves standing near the central installation, the one symbolizing growth, the delicate interplay of light and shadow. Arden turned to Liana, his expression soft but resolute, and reached into his coat pocket. She sensed the moment before he spoke, heart quickening with anticipation. Liana, he said, voice steady but layered with emotion, I've spent too long letting fear and assumptions guide me. Too long hiding behind walls I thought protected me. You've taught me how to trust, how to feel, and how to let someone in. Her breath caught, eyes glistening. Arden. He knelt gracefully on one knee, the polished floors reflecting the flicker of lights above, the gallery now feeling like a private world suspended within the public celebration. From his pocket, he produced a delicate, elegant ring, its simplicity mirroring the authenticity of their connection. I don't want to waste another moment without knowing that you're mine, and that I'm yours. Fully, completely, without hesitation, he continued, gaze locked on hers. Will you marry me, Liana? Tears pricked the corners of her eyes as a slow smile broke across her face. Yes, she whispered, voice trembling with joy, relief, and love. Yes, Arden. Of course. He slipped the ring onto her finger with care, lifting her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss onto the smooth skin. They rose together, foreheads touching, eyes closed for a heartbeat, savoring the intimacy of the moment amidst the gallery's soft lighting and the crowd's delighted murmurs. Guests clapped softly, sensing the significance without intruding, and Ma stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes as she hugged Liana tightly, then offered Arden a nod of approval. The couple exchanged a glance, both aware of how far they had come, from misunderstanding and loss to trust, intimacy, and commitment. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of celebration, conversation, and laughter. Arden and Liana moved together, side by side, hands intertwined, the weight of their past struggles replaced with certainty about the future. Every glance, every touch, every quiet moment between them spoke of a bond that had been tested and proven unbreakable. A few weeks later, the epilogue unfolded quietly yet beautifully. The gallery was bustling with visitors on a weekend morning, sunlight streaming through the large windows, painting the walls and floors with warmth. Arden and Liana stood near the entrance, watching as the community embraced the space, laughter and conversation filling every corner. Then came the wedding, a simple but elegant ceremony held within the same gallery, where their love had grown and flourished. Friends, family, and community members gathered around, Ma smiling proudly beside her daughter, Arden holding Liana's hand with unwavering devotion. The vows were whispered softly, intimate and honest, promising partnership, respect, and love that would endure all storms. When they kissed as a married couple, the gallery seemed to hold its breath, the colors of the art shimmering as if celebrating the union. Every brushstroke, every model, every piece of her work stood as a testament to what they had built together. Professionally, personally, and romantically. The final moments of their story showed them stepping hand in hand onto the balcony, overlooking the city that had witnessed their journey. Rain had fallen earlier in the week, leaving streets glistening, reflections sparkling, and a fresh sense of possibility in the air. Arden whispered something in her ear, making her laugh softly, the sound carrying the lightness of freedom, love, and fulfillment.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.